All right, my iPad shows that it is 8:30, so I'd like to call the meeting of the Law and Government / Liquor meeting to order. Can we call roll, please, Cap?
Sauger.
Here.
Wagner.
Here.
Hendricks.
Here.
Campbell. Kunkel.
Here.
Shorten.
Here.
Althoff.
Here. Do I still need to do with the new law, do I still need to have a motion to allow Brian to attend by electronic means?
It's err on the side of caution, yes.
Okay, so can I have a motion, Kelly, motion, seconded by Michael, to allow Mr. Sauger to attend via electronically? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hey, Brian, you're now officially part of the meeting. And I'd also like to note that Ms. Campbell called this morning. They're taking their son to college, so she will not be here, seeing as how those things always take precedence over county business. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented? Ms. Wagner, seconded by Mr. Kunkel. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
It's Gary. Public comment. Do we have any public comments, Scott?
We have none? No comment?
Do we have any member comments this morning? Ms. Wagner?
Yes, thank you. So I just want to put this on the record so everybody knows what's going on. There's a bill that was proposed in the last legislative session in Springfield called Ethan's Law. It's bill number SB 1521. It didn't get out of committee, but it may happen this next session. So it's a very simple bill that provides accountability to those who own firearms. It states that a person who owns a firearm must provide safe firearm storage if a minor is likely to gain access to the firearm without the permission of the parent or guardian, or another person who lives in that residence is ineligible to possess a firearm under the federal, state, or local laws. If the person violates this provision and a minor or a person in the household who is ineligible to possess the firearm gains access to it and causes injury or death, the owner of the gun is guilty of a Class 2 felony. So basically what this does, it provides accountability for gun owners. It just says that they must keep it stored and away from those who are not eligible to use it. There's several color counties that have passed the resolution in support of this law. Kane will be approving it in September. 5 states have passed it. It's called Ethan's Law, and 3, including Illinois, are talking about it. The reason why it's called Ethan's Law, it's in honor of Ethan Song. In 2018, Ethan Song died 2 days before his 16th birthday in the home of a neighbor whose father had not secured his guns. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because it is legislation. So Alicia, if you would put this in your list of legislation to track, I would appreciate that. I think ultimately I would like this part of our legislative agenda, but at this point it's not really an active bill. So I just wanted to let everybody know about that. And I do have a handout just giving everybody the bill and where it is in legislation. Thank you.
It is an active bill. It just hasn't come out of the Rules Committee yet. And if that's okay with the committee, Ms. Wagner and I have discussed this, and I thought it was not a large ask for Alicia to just track it and see if it does come out during veto or if it's something that will be refiled again in January of 2024. So seeing no objection, we'll just go ahead and, Mr. Short?
Yeah, so this is a bill that's in assignments. It's not even.
It's not. It has not come out to committee yet.
Right.
Which is why I think we're just talking about it and keeping track of it as opposed to taking any other kind of action until it moves.
I mean, so there's been no hearings on it, no witness slips, no.
Nothing at this point, no. But there's a great deal of discussion, and what Ms. Wagner is referencing is many counties that want this legislation to move forward have taken action asking for the bill to come out of assignments. We're not doing that at this particular point because it is not an active bill, but we'd like it tracked. So we just wanted to put it on the radar so that we follow it and see if anything happens during veto. There's a great deal of discussion in Springfield about this legislation, but there's no formal action at this point.
Okay. Do we have any data that shows a number of children that are killed under these circumstances? Or
I can provide you with that. And there's a website too, it's called ethansong.org, but I'll send you guys some more information.
It's a national effort across the country. It's not just in Illinois, it's
Sure,
across the
no, I
country.
understand that. I mean,
Just wanted, yeah.
I mean, I look at the number of bills that are pending in Springfield, sitting in committee that haven't had a hearing, that haven't been vetted out, and
Which is, again, why Ms. Wagner has agreed not to ask for any kind of formal support or anything. We're going to track it and see if it changes, see if it's modified, see if it's something that McHenry County ultimately wishes to support or not. That's all that, am I stating it
Exactly,
correctly?
just asking to track it.
Mr. Kunkel?
Yeah, I'm all in favor of protecting kids. The big thing I want to do is make sure that when the final, because like you said, a lot of activity going on, this is Springfield, let's see what the final ask is, because there's always those components, even like the safety, it came out with who's in charge of what, how much, so we really need to make sure that we're not opening the can of worms, but I love the idea of at least tracking this, because would love to be up to date of it when it comes to pass.
And what I passed out was just exact, it's a short
What
bill.
it is right now, yes, yeah,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
Just provides accountability.
And hopefully, you're all comfortable with the fact that many others may come forward with legislation that they're interested in, that we would like to have, formal tracking of as it moves forward. So, don't think it's out of the normal. Any questions or comments? Okay, moving on. We have, under new business, we will have later in our agenda, I'll have a little bit of an updated report on some liquor license matters, but we'll do that later. New date for the October meeting, that's because it falls on Halloween, right? I mean, no?
I thought you requested that, Madam Chair.
Did I? Oh, you know what, I did because, I apologize, I'm just getting back from Africa, that's correct. So I requested that we back up the date for our October meeting to.
October 31st, you have a conflict with, so, whether we go the
Right.
afternoon of the 1st, or the morning of the 30th, or the afternoon of the 2nd, those are the kinds of things that we wanted to talk about.
I just want to know if we get to dress up.
Sure, for Halloween, absolutely.
Isn't the
Come as your
first-
favorite board member.
Isn't the first Sunday, I think, or Saturday?
No,
November
the
1st.
31st is a Tuesday, the
well,
1st is a Wednesday.
On the normal
October.
side of it.
Anybody have a preference? Or just notify you of what we ultimately decide?
That's
All right, we'll go ahead and choose whatever is convenient for staff.
Transportation ends on the first, too.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, principally, it would be the morning of the 30th, Monday morning the 30th at the same time.
That's fine.
Okay,
Why don't we do that?
all right.
So noted. We don't have to take official action on that.
No, but we'll have to mail out an announcement to the
Right.
press.
Monday the 30th then?
Yes, please.
8:30?
Legislative update. Alicia, you want to write us up here, please?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So, legislative update. Just so you know, there are a couple of procedural items I'd like to discuss with you. Veto session is going to be coming up rather quickly. So the first portion of it comes on the week last week of October, 24th to 26th, and then the next portion of it goes on November 7th to November 9th. So veto session, what do you guys need to know about that? Well, there are certain bills that have been vetoed by the governor, but to overcome a veto, you need to have a 3/5 majority in both chambers to be able to do that. So what does that mean? That means in the Senate you need 71 votes, and in the House it means you need 36.
Other way around.
I'm sorry?
In the Senate, you need 36. In the House, you
My
flipped it.
I'm
That's
sorry.
okay.
Thank you, I appreciate that correction. And just so you know, the split from Democrat to Republican in the Senate is 40 to 19, and the split in the House is 77 to 40. So just keep that in mind as we go through some of these bills at case law of note. So on August 11th, I'm sure you all know, Calkins v. Pritzker came down, and that was challenging various aspects of the Protect Illinois Communities Act. Further challenges are anticipated in the court system. So again, I'm going to be keeping an eye on that. I'm also going to be sending you my written report, and you can view the case yourself if you would like to. I have a link to it. You should also know that there was a certain bill, House Bill 2878, that allowed for certain public-private partnerships to go on with local governments, amongst other things. And one of the things that it allowed for is for businesses to help us with building roads. But the governor did provide an mandatory veto on this because he wanted to make sure that there were different safeguards, or the same safeguards for the state imposed upon local governments. So again, we're going to see if that, how that comes out, if there are any amendments that are put through in the veto session or not, and if it ultimately passes.
It actually was really positive action, but the state has very specific guidelines for public-private partnerships, what's required, what's not required. There was absolutely no guidance in this legislation for how local governments would deal with public-private partnerships. So rather than have it go through with no guidance.
Another piece of legislation that I am going to be keeping an eye on is House Bill 3445. That's the omnibus energy bill. Now, why does that matter to the county? Well, it also provided an extension of time that a county board has to grant a hearing to, or for applications for a commercial solar energy facility. So again, right now that bill has not been passed. The governor did a mandatory veto, and it was on other grounds. It had to do with electrical providers having monopolies in the region. So again, it wasn't on this ground, but do want to keep an eye on that and see when it does eventually go through, if it does. So other things that you should know that went on in the past couple months, the county board did have the Midwest Interstate Trail last Thursday. Member Meshes was there along with Chairman Bueller. Representative Weber was there and seemed very supportive of that project. He was made aware that federal and state funding will be needed to complete the project going forward, so just wanted you to know. Also, the Workforce Network and staff will be meeting with Congressman Foster this upcoming Friday to discuss, legislative restrictions on workforce networks and, their funding. Also, it is the season to start collecting input for the upcoming legislative program. ISACO is doing that, so is the McHenry County Council of Governments, and I did take the liberty of putting out the standard form to, the department heads and elected officials. So any further action you would like me to take, please let me know. Please be advised that we've already received some responses out of the VAC. I haven't had enough time to really review it and dig into it yet, but I'll keep you updated as more information comes in.
And remind our department heads to check with their various associations too, to see if there's any legislative initiatives that they would like us to support that may be going on that may be appropriate as well.
Thank you so much.
Any questions? And you did provide us with a written report, so do appreciate
yes,
that.
I'm going to hit send on the email right now.
Thank you.
And I'm sure, I think, at least in our, do you want a formal email to the board asking for ideas? Do you want it to be in my report orally, or?
Yes, both are great.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's, again, we're beginning something that has been dormant for 8 years. So any kind of initiative that we can encourage people to weigh in would be welcome. So thank you. Moving on, thank you very much. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you. Routine consent agenda. Does anybody want anything removed from the routine consent agenda? Or lacking that, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented? Motion by Mr. Shorten, seconded by Mr. Hendricks.
Sure.
Any further discussion? Can we have a roll call, Kathy, please?
Humboldt.
Yes.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Sager.
Yes.
Shorten.
Yes.
Altough.
Yes. All right, moving on to presentations.
But can
Oh,
I,
sure.
David, did you want to note natural hazard mitigation quick? I would love to. Can David have 30 seconds?
Well, seeing as how it's David.
We got good news yesterday, right? But it was after our agenda was posted. Take it away.
I'm assuming it's the resolution that's in front of us?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, we didn't think this would happen so quickly, but FEMA approved our hazard mitigation plan pending adoption. We have a plan in force so that we, the county, could actually still apply for hazard mitigation dollars on the old plan, but it's better to do a new one. A number of our communities are not, so somebody has to adopt it. So I had hoped I could get it on the agenda. This plan has been reviewed by about 120 people in the county. whether it's environmental defenders or our towns or townships, and so the deadline for applying for BRIC funds, Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities, hey, I got the acronym on that one, or FMA, Flood Mitigation Grants, is October 1. We don't have a lot of time, and part of your application is to include the resolution showing that you adopted the plan. The plan is currently, it's too large to print, 653 pages. A lot of it is background information, right? The threats and hazards that have faced the county, what we've done, presidential or gubernatorial declarations, where the communities stand in their building codes or what have you. So there's a lot of background information. The meat of it is what's in the resolution, and that's those action steps. So I just hope that you consider it, or we push it along, and it's okay to send to the board.
We can't really take any formal action because it wasn't on the agenda, but can we just push it forward to the board?
I would like to move it, because of the timing you said, I would like to move it ahead and put it under unfinished business, get the full board sign off.
So is there a consensus from the committee to go ahead and move forward and place it upon the next committee of the whole and then county board meeting so we can approve it and stay within the timeline? Anybody have any objections to that?
I think, I haven't spoken with the chairman yet, but I think our September committee of the whole won't be that bad, so maybe Dave can talk
A little bit more about it.
Because it is significant. We got great participation this time from all the communities. Shailen gets a little credit there in rousting everybody out.
Thank you.
It was good. Thank you, David.
So I think you have consensus. I don't want to take formal action because it wasn't on, but
Correct.
we'll do that. Thank you, Dave.
And I appreciate
that.
it.
Thank you, Shailen.
Send a happy note to FEMA about thanks for rushing.
Excuse me, though, Dave, don't go
No,
away.
it's
It's okay.
You go ahead, it's not about you.
Okay.
I was trying to pull up my questions. On the resolution, can I go back and just ask a question about the resolution,
Sure.
even though we passed it?
Sure.
The one for the contract for Vertisoft for the sheriff's jail management. I just had a question because usually, it said you worked with the director of procurement.
Yes.
Were there any alternatives to this
There
software?
was. In fact, I'm just going to take a quick moment to introduce you to the man who did all the work, and that's Sergeant Ryan Fitzgerald. So we've known for a while that we were going to have to look for a new jail management system, and he and his team met with 4 other software companies, went through demos, trying to figure out, we didn't know what we didn't know, so we couldn't go out to bid because we didn't, know what was even out there anymore. So when we sat down and decided what the specs were that we liked, we worked with the director of purchasing, and he said that Vertisoft was on a contract that we didn't have to bid. We could just go off of that contract, so yes.
So it was under the cooperative.
Right.
You didn't have to RFP. Okay.
We didn't, and we even looked at a contract in Florida, because we were trying to piggyback off another one, and they use Soma for everything in their sheriff's office, and right now we're just looking at the jail management system.
All right. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you for the clarification. Great question. Thank you. So next on our agenda is, if you'll remember, when we were at our last meeting, we had a great deal of conversation about the social worker program that we had initiated, and we thought that we wanted to have a presentation to learn, what it was, where it is, where it's going, all of those things. So we do have 2 members from that program with us today, Sergeant
It's good, Canope.
Nope. Oh, I like that better, Sergeant Nope.
Thank you.
Kind here is taking the lead, so turning it over to you, and can you bring us up to speak?
Absolutely. Thank you for having myself and Alana today. We are going to give you a brief overview. You guys have a long agenda, so we created a packet, some supporting documents that you guys can refer to later, some things that we normally talk about. We are we like to talk about the program for days, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. So if you have questions afterwards, feel free to reach out to me. So the program, the McHenry County Police Social Work Program, is comprised of 5 police social workers, a clinical supervisor, who's Alana, and a director, and a police social worker from the McHenry County Sheriff's Office. To help provide oversight and guidance, and to ensure the mission of service to law enforcement and the community, an advisory council was created and has been meeting quarterly. Today, we're joined by Molly Dallin and Holly Eberly. They are our community members, so we want to thank them for coming and showing their support. 17 police departments initially joined the countywide program, and in February, Prairie Grove Police Department joined. With the Sheriff's Office, the program is comprised serving 19 police departments. Most recently, the Crystal Lake Park District also has expressed interest and is talking to their board. The program began with funding in December of 2021. Training of police officers were the primary focus for the first 6 months. In July of 2022, police social workers were assigned to their police departments and began directly serving. In October, we implemented our after-hours on-call support. In early 2023, the SOMA database was purchased and began development. Police social workers went back and manually entered data from fiscal year 23. The database is significant due to its abilities to provide the numbers and data of the impact of the program in addition to our success stories. A quick summary of the program. Officers respond to a call for service and fill out a referral form. And if for someone who they feel in the community that could benefit from the support of a police social worker. Police social workers then review the referral, vet and prioritize referrals, provide crisis support if needed, learn more about the client, provide that warm handoff to services to aid the client. Police social workers can also reconnect and continue to support clients as needed. Impact to date. One goal we had when we built the program was to build a diverse team, and we hit a home run on that. I'm a softball mom. So each police social worker has different strengths and passions, from working in crisis and services of involuntaries to juvenile trauma, substance abuse, inpatient and outpatient mental health facilities, and domestic violence, just to name a few. We are so thankful we built an embedded police social work program that helps us connect residents to already established agencies and resources. Due to the social workers being employees of the Sheriff's Office, they have access to all police reports through ETSB, which aids them in client backgrounds and services. We meet with social service partners monthly. We have trained with partnering agencies and have collected and continue to gather resources to aid residents in McHenry County. Police social workers go to the length of asking residents of their insurance and making sure the warm handoff to that agency can support them. Access to services can be an obstacle, and with the police social workers, they work to break down those barriers. They set the client up for success, which helps McHenry County social service agencies be more efficient and successful as well. One example of collaboration with a social service agency is a thank you note in your packet for police social worker Taylor, and she received this from Options and Advocacy. There are 3 special populations that I would like to talk more about today. The first 2 are seniors and adult children. If it was not for the police social workers, some of these cases would continue to fall through the cracks. Police and fire are called repeatedly back to residents for non-criminal matters. These cases often go between social service agencies in a gray area. There is also no one advocating for them often, and it's hard for them to advocate for themselves. And so the police social workers become those advocates. Some cases have been successfully resolved, and some of them continue to be navigated and will be for a long time on the PSW's caseload. One example I'd like to share today is a municipality with less than 10,000 residents. This police department is staffed usually with 2 police officers a shift. And we received a referral of an elderly man who police and fire responded to his residence for nearly 10 years. They referred him to services unsuccessfully. Some of this fell through the cracks because the client was not cooperative. First responders were usually seeing this resident 3 times a day for lifts, assists, and calls to help him with daily living activities. He had no one else to call. The police social workers started navigating and lined up the correct agencies to gain long-term success. And this took a little bit of time. The day this all was put into motion was a police officer driving this elderly man willingly to a hospital with trained and briefed geriatric nurses who helped him with care and the support he needed. The police social worker followed in their county vehicle, met with hospital staff, and after the drop-off, the police social worker drove back to his town to serve his community. The police social worker continued to be there at the hospital to be a resource in navigation throughout that day and throughout the case. She even attended court to provide testimony on the state guardian ad litem case. After the hospital ride, this man has been in assisted living, being cared for properly, and his town, the first responders have not had to respond to his residence since. Regarding adult children, this is a growing population where the parents are aging and have limited means and abilities to support their adult children. Often, police social workers provide guidance with advocacy, linking to support groups and other government agencies to aid parents who need assistance with navigation. The third population I'd like to talk about today is homelessness. This population, this community, continues to be an obstacle. Police social workers receive calls from officers that need support with emergency housing and often where there's nowhere to go. We use creativity and help with navigation of family and friends, but often when a first responder gets this call, that assistance has been exhausted. I recognize this is a very complex topic and that we have an affordable housing obstacle in McHenry County which bottlenecks this process. But this is something that officers and police social workers continue to work on. Each police department has expressed appreciation for the program and for the work that the police social workers provide. We encourage you to reach out to your police chiefs to learn that firsthand. In a short time, success stories are being heard. One police chief in a small agency said about 6 months ago to me when I met him that he didn't think this program would work. And he said, "I'll be the first one to admit to my village board it's a great program." The chief expanded. He made one key referral. It was a veteran. He never thought that the police social worker could get anywhere with him. He might have been a little stubborn. Now the veteran has been linked to services successfully and does not call on his law enforcement agency for contact anymore. One call and that police chief became a believer. This program is similar to a task force in law enforcement. If you're a smaller agency, your contribution is smaller, and you may not see your police social worker in your agency, but they're always still a phone call away. I should say that different. You may not see your police social worker at your agency as often, but they're always a phone call away. They continue to work referrals. For instance, if they're at another agency, they work all their referrals. They just might not always be there in person. But when the world falls apart, the social worker that serves your community and your officers are there for that incident. And if needed, the police social workers from the program can also come in and support. Police social workers have provided training to officers on responding to mental health calls for service and involuntaries, and this is an area we look forward to growing in the future. We are so thankful for the foresight of creating police liaisons at each police department. A police liaison is a police social worker's primary contact at that agency, and that's who they usually conduct daily business with at that agency. This has been a valuable collaboration and effective way for two-way communication. The police social workers continue to support officers and departments through peer support and officer wellness. We do not replace EAP. We're an open door, a resource, and assist when a crisis occurs. For instance, with having police social workers to support, but also arranging critical incident stress management debriefs. It's important for us to take care of our officers so they can take care of the community. Now we're going to get to probably what you've been all waiting for, the data. Quarterly, the Police Social Work Program provides a report to the McHenry County Mental Health Board. The data I'm going to talk to you today about starts on December 1, 2022. We're going to share some statistics and what we know from the first 6 months of the program. In 2022, we reported to the Mental Health Board that we anticipated we would serve 720 clients in fiscal year 2023. In the first 6 months of fiscal year 23, we exceeded that number with 965 referrals, 490 in the first quarter and 475 in the second. Each quarter, we also send out a survey to clients that the police social workers have email addresses to. They receive these email addresses because sometimes clients are sent resources and support via email. A copy of the survey results are in your packet. One question I would like to highlight is the question we asked. Because of the help I received from the police social worker, I may not need to call the police as often. All 6 responses, we got 10% back. I heard that's a good number.
It's a great number.
We were excited. All 6 responses stated they agreed or strongly agreed with that statement. That's pretty awesome. So, of those 965 clients we are serving, 57% are adults between the ages of 25 and 64. 12% is seniors. One age bracket that is smaller is children between the age of 0 and 16. And we attribute that, and we hope to get the data to support it in the future, is the support that children receive in schools and other programs already in the county. 56% are also female. We want to know trends, and so we are tracking monthly juvenile referrals. Youth are usually not in school in June, July, and August. And what we're going to do with this data is we're going to watch, do our referrals go up? So we have an outlier, and this is the first year. So we're looking over the next few years, and we feel that this data could help other youth-serving organizations with programming in the future as well. Next, I'm going to highlight the primary reason for referrals from officers. The top 5 are mental health, which we anticipated. 31% of our referrals from officers. The other top 5 are domestic, juvenile issues, substance abuse, and seniors. 84% of our time is spent on these top 5. All right. Are we making a difference? Yes. We do a clinical assessment called GAF that measures clients' overall functioning. In both quarters, we saw an overwhelming increase. And now recidivism. What we measure are police contacts, not arrest. The goal of the program is to decrease law enforcement's response to the community for non-criminal matters. This program is in some ways similar to crime prevention, and we desire to help people after our contact is made. And so what we do is we measure the couple months before police social workers intervene and how many times the police were responded there, and that's why we look at police reports and CAD to give us that information, and then we look after the police social workers intervention. And you can see we're at 69% of a reduction in police contacts. So that's a quick, brief overview. Do you guys have any questions?
And I'm going to ask Ms. Bach, do you have anything that you want to add? Or were you just there for moral support?
Yes. I'm over here for questions.
Does anyone have any follow-up questions, Ms.
Yeah,
Wagner?
Thank you. What a wonderful program. I assume this is a model. Do you have other counties coming to ask how we're doing this? And
So yes, actually, we could talk about that all day. And we also had a presentation about 6 months ago to Speaker Welch and highlighted that program to him as well. So throughout the state, and if you talk to one of your, somebody else, we're called a hybrid model with CIT trained officers co-responding and follow-up with police social workers. So we talked to our counterparts in Kane County. I did last night actually about the program. So
great. That wasn't my real question. But
sorry.
No. I'm glad. I want all that information. So my first question is, when there is a call, do the social workers automatically go out with the officer, or, how do they know to go out, or are they just called afterward?
So it can happen several different ways. A majority of our referrals are afterwards. So it's about 80% of the time we receive a referral afterwards, and that's actually where we're seeing the success. We don't want to be responding to residents 5 and 10 years, and so we receive a referral, for instance, a domestic. What's the underlying issue? And so we receive the referral and we start working with the family. So we can provide a lot of support actually over the phone, talking to police officers that are on scene. Can police social workers go out? Yes. What's unique about our program is we're over 600 square miles, right? It never fails. The police social worker, and if we had a true co-responding program, it would be a police social worker and an officer in a squad car. You would have them in Cary for some reason, they just cleared a call, and then you would need them in Hubbard or Marengo. It would take 45 minutes to get there. And the situation usually is de-escalated by then. So what we do is, it's important for us to train our officers. For instance, at the sheriff's office, I think we're about 70% CIT trained officer. We need to, crisis intervention trained, okay? So that's a 40-hour training for law enforcement to learn more about how to de-escalate and help those with mental illness and other illnesses. So it's an excellent training. So we need to empower our first responders and support them. And sometimes it's on scene, sometimes it's, the next day. And they love hearing about, they realize, right? I've gone to Junior's house 10 times in 4 months. And then all of a sudden, we're not going there. And they'll come back to the social workers, what happens. And they can share very vaguely an update. But that's where they see a lot of the success. Again, we can do phone support, we can go on scene, but one obstacle is often when the scene is extremely escalated, the best hostage negotiator, the best CIT trained officer, and the best social worker, they're not going to listen. And so we try and minimize that situation, and we work very close to the crisis team at Woodstock Hospital and communicate with them, and we coordinate follow-up afterwards, so we don't want to happen again. So if we can't help it scene, we want to minimize happening again.
And I have two more questions. Level of functioning, you said increased level of functioning. What is that?
So basically what we do is it's a global assessment of functioning clinical assessment tool that we use. So they get a score at the beginning when we first start working with them, and then they get scored at the end of when their case is closed. So these aren't cases that we sent out letters to and we never heard back from them. So these are active cases we've worked on, and then we compare those scores. So if there's an increase in the score, then it's an increase in their functioning, because the tool looks at many different avenues of their life, so their social, their work functioning, all that kind of stuff as a whole. So then when those two numbers, when we get an increase in score, we get an increase in functioning.
And lastly, you are reporting to the mental health board because you receive funding from the mental health board, right? And do you anticipate asking for more money from the mental health board this year?
So we have, and the funding questions, we are more than happy to have Sandy expand more about.
That's fine, no,
Yep,
I just.
but yes, we have asked the mental health board, so we were awarded $300,000 in the past. Last year, we asked for an increase because salaries and fuel and vehicles and everything is going up. So last year, we asked for an increase, we did not receive it. We received $300,000, and then we've asked for another increase.
Thank you.
Anyone, Eric?
Yeah, you asked for 300,000 and received 300,000.
The first year, that is what we received. The second year, we asked closer to 340, I believe.
Correct.
And we received 300,000 again.
Okay, thank you.
And what will the new ask be?
350.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Just thank you very much for the
Thank you.
time. And again, good luck, and it's working well, and we hope that you'll be back in another 6-9 months and
Sounds great.
tell us it's even better.
We'd
So,
love to.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I brought a sample if anybody wants to see it of the packs that the
Girl Scouts made us, they're called busy bags, so it's for any of our kiddos that are struggling on scene or any autistic kids. So it's got fidgets, it's got coloring books. They did a lot of work on this project, and it's actually really cool. So we received 180 of these bags a couple weeks ago. So,
And how long do you anticipate that'll serve you for?
hopefully a couple months, maybe?
Yeah.
A little longer.
That's what I was going for. Thank you.
Thank
Again,
you.
Thank you very much. Moving right along, we've got our budget reviews. We'll start with our first, and I was curious if it was done on purpose. 9.1, it's the emergency telephone system. I call it 911, but I just thought maybe that was a pun.
Up here.
Yes, please.
I did want to add with the social workers, the McHenry County ETSB also worked with them as far as creating units and employee IDs for them. So in the event that they have a situation, that they are able to have the dispatch centers know where they're at. So I don't know that they're utilizing that, but forward thinking that in the event that they are responding, it was obviously a concern of the Sheriff's Department, but also myself personally, to make sure that any of our responding personnel, regardless if they're emergency responding at first or coming later, that, and we've done the same thing with coroners, to make sure that we know where they're at. Because as we know in today's society, things can go south really quick. So it's important to us and then to know where these staff members are. So. I am Tiki Schulte, new last name from last year. I am the director for the McHenry County ETSB. With me today is Randy Sinatine. He is our newly appointed assistant director. So this is his debut to to this type of setting. So
We'll be kind.
yeah. So he's one of our goals and highlights that is listed. So. So before you is the budget for the McHenry County Emergency Telephone System Board. As you hopefully are aware, we are funded by the Emergency Telephone System Act. We are not funded by county tax dollars. So we're considered an enterprise agency within the county audit, I believe it is. I understand that there's a difference in the presentations this year, that you're just looking for
High
level and what has
And you.
changed. Yes. So the largest change for the McHenry County ETSB budget is the grants that the ETSB provides to agencies, the police and fire agencies, with our STARCOM 21 grant, which helps offset their expenses for their mobile radios, network connectivity on the STARCOM 21 system. And then also this year we increased our PSAP reimbursement grant. The PSAP reimbursement grant is to offset expenses in the dispatch centers. We are doing this increase as a one-year situation. As some of you who have been around for previous years, we, as the 911 industry in Illinois, are always risking a sunset of our funding. Chairman Althoff is very aware of that in her tenure of being a senator. So we've always budgeted very conservatively and with the understanding that at any time our funding could cease. However, our funding has been extended for 2 more years, so now the sunset, rather than being December of 23, is December of 2025. So we're in a position to be able to increase the grants to the PSAPs. That is, the monies are to reimburse for expenses that are allowable expenses in the Emergency Telephone System Act. Other than that, our budget is pretty much static as it has been for the last number of years.
Any challenges that you see? I mean, outside of again, funding. And has the funding stayed pretty much the same over the years, or have you seen huge fluctuations? Just talk a little bit.
We had a nice, I would say nice, unexpected increase. I believe it was in 2017, where the 911 surcharge was increased to $1.50 a line throughout the state. So years back, in 1989, 1990, when the county passed a resolution, the surcharge for McHenry County residents was 50 cents per line. And a majority of that, obviously, back in those days, were landlines.
I think the big difference there was local control on what that rate was.
Yes, and it was passed by resolution, or by, not resolution,
Yeah, in
ordinance.
17, it was standardized statewide, which
yes.
put a lot more money in the system and took the burden off of.
Exactly, and so of that $1.50, it does not all come to McHenry County. And with that, what I mean is, through the act, there are percentages that go back to the carriers for infrastructure build out, the state for management of the fund, the expenses that we used to pay out of our budget for the network connectivity charges. And so now that's taken kind of off the top, if you will. So instead of them sending us the money and us sending it to the carriers, it's going to the carriers. So
it's a trade-off.
Challenges right now, what we have is the implementation of the statewide EZNet, which is a statewide network for 911 call delivery, going away from analog phone lines to digital voice over IP, being able to text to 911 centers in the future, to send video, to send photos. And that is something from a mental health standpoint, is now, we're looking at telecommunicators seeing visuals, getting videos. And so that's something that all communication centers are very cognizant of and preparing for, is not only, they're hearing what's going on, but potentially they can see what's happening. So that, to me, is the biggest challenge, is the mental health of the telecommunicators. So technology-wise, we are, keeping up with the industry demands, and we are very fortunate. We've been able to extend our staff, so we now have 6 full-time employees and a part-time employee, and so we're building our team for future changes. Succession planning, exactly.
So I always do this. Randy, how long have you been with us?
I've been here 8 years.
Okay.
8 years.
So next time you come, be prepared for the question is, what do you see that needs to be addressed that maybe nobody else saw? Because now it's kind of going to be a new responsibility for you, right? So
I will make note of that, thank you.
please, I always do that. Brush your eyes. Want to know what you see. Anybody have any questions? Great presentation.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it. Thank you very much. Do we need a motion to move this forward? Can I have Kelly
Consensus.
seconded? Huh?
Just
What?
consensus, heads nodding. However
Are
you
you,
want to get.
I get different direction from different people. What would you?
I know she's in charge.
Absolutely, hands down. Okay, so we have a consensus to move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
Thank you.
very much. The next will be the circuit clerk. Good morning, Ms. Keefe. How are you?
Good morning. I have our office accountant Laura Hart with me this morning. We'll also try to keep it brief. I guess our budget's always a crapshoot. Since our revenue comes from fines and fees, it's always something that's kind of hard to pin down, but I feel like this next year is maybe even going to be harder to pin down than normal. So looking at our...
Why do you say that?
Partly the Safety Act, the Pretrial Fairness Act, with we're currently holding about $4 million in bond, in cash bond, and so that bond gets applied currently to fines and fees. In fact, this past year, I think it was about, in a typical year, we apply a little, maybe $1.5 million in cash bond. I think so far this year, already we've applied $800,000 in cash bond towards fines and fees. So as that goes away, it's hard to say what will replace it. Will people, in those criminal cases actually come and pay their fines and fees, or will they, remain unpaid? So I guess that's what makes it a little bit more of a crapshoot than normal, not really knowing what our collections are going to look like, moving forward.
That's why I asked. Thank you.
Yeah, so that is probably, so I guess some of the pros we're seeing with revenue, we're seeing an uptick in tickets written, which we haven't seen in quite a long time. Not a huge
Depending
increase.
who you are, that might be
Right,
good.
depending on who you are, for us, it's a good thing. So we are seeing a slight increase in tickets that are being written. So we're seeing a little bit increase in revenue along, in those lines. We unexpectedly had cash bond through, it'll be through September 18th. Because the Pretrial Fairness Act kicks in September 18th. We weren't really expecting to have that through 2023. So that was a pro. We've continued on with cash bond up through September. Interest has been higher. That's been a big bonus that we've seen. And I guess the fact that we're still carrying that $4 million in bond, we're seeing better interest than we've been seeing in years on on the money that we're sitting on. So those are some pros. Some of the cons then that we really don't know the extent of yet is, so September 18th is when cash bail will go away. Our general fund interest that we're gaining on the bond, that's all gonna, I feel like, be diminished eventually. We don't know how quickly our bond account will be diminished, but ultimately it will be reduced to zero. Public Act 103-379, which was effective July 28th, just removed fines and fees on juvenile cases. So juvenile delinquent cases, so anything written under the Juvenile Court Act, which wasn't a huge collection point for us. We maybe did 50, 60,000 annually on juvenile
And
delinquent
percentage of the
cases.
overall budget? I mean, minimal?
Small, yeah, minimal.
Okay, that's-
I guess maybe one of the bigger things that the county might see, these parental responsibility collections that they were doing, which is basically collecting for juveniles being held in detention to try to reimburse the county for a little bit of what that's costing the county. And that's generally 20, 30,000 a year they were collecting that. I'm sure I don't know what that costs, but I'm guessing it's way more than that. But they were collecting around 20 to 30,000 a year on those reimbursements, but that all, effective July 28th, is gone. We're doing a few refunds on that. Laura's been working on some refunds on that. Like after the act, we didn't really get notice of it right off the bat, but so it was some payments that came in afterwards. So refunding that, and then are working to reduce all those balances down to zero. So not a huge difference because we weren't, it wasn't a huge collection area for us, but also just kind of another chip away at the revenue. Expense cons, we're not completely sure how the Pretrial Fairness Act will affect our personnel costs right at the moment. We're continuing with our Saturday, what we used to call bond court or rights court. That will continue. So we have, as part of our contract with our employees, we pay a minimum of 4 hours at overtime at time and a half for those who attend that Saturday bond court. So not really sure if that's going to take longer. I think there's a lot of speculation of whether that's going to take longer than it currently does with the detention hearings and that type of thing. So I guess there's some speculation that we might have a little bit more overtime than we currently run as that whole the detention hearings and that type of thing get figured out a little bit more. I'm sure you'll hear a little bit more about that from the public defender and the state's attorney and court services, because they've definitely got a lot more issues than we have in that arena. But for us, it'll just be the clerks that we also have available on Saturdays. Another potential issue for us, there's language in the act that requires orders of protection to be, I'm not sure of the specifics of that, but the potential that we could be doing orders of protection also on Saturday. If that gets to be a real regular thing, we might need more than the one clerk that we normally staff on Saturdays. So some unknowns there, with our expenses. We used to also carry, I guess, which is a pro, we used to carry a lot of vacant positions, but once we got our new contract, we were down to just one vacancy that we've been holding. So yes, that's definitely been a pro for us, is our new union contract with our 1950 starting rate has made hiring much easier, definitely much easier. But other than that, we're generally partially funded by the general fund, but then we've got 5 special funds that come from fee collections, court automation, court document storage, which that funds all of our technology and that type of thing. We do have the couple of supplementals that we had listed. The one was for some potential additional overtime in the general fund for that unknown additional staffing that we may potentially need on Saturdays. But then we're also asking we have one vacant position we would like to convert to a court data operations manager. Our biggest challenge going into 2024, the Supreme Court's got a lot of new requirements. I know Seth has been seeing some of these also. They're looking for a lot of data from court services. They started with court services and now they've moved on to the courts. And generally they almost want our entire case management system sent to them on a daily basis is kind of what it's coming down to it. They literally want almost everything firing off to them on a daily basis. They're looking to replace the static statistical reports we do on a monthly basis and our daily, what we call the automatic dispositional reporting, which is dispositions that are going to the state police and the Secretary of State. They funnel through the Supreme Court, but then ultimately end up with the Secretary of State and the Illinois State Police. So they're looking to replace all that with this massive thing that they call Socrata, that is basically just a feed of our data on a daily basis. So we're looking to convert one of our vacant positions, and also then we reduced a couple to part-time, so really expense-wise, it's kind of a wash. And have someone who's actually managing that daily feed of data, because it's going to be such a big undertaking for us, and the importance of it being accurate is going to be very important, because it is dispositions on their, which will go on their driving record, on their criminal history, and just concerned that they want it so quickly that, that we're going to need someone in our office who's managing that on a regular basis, just to make sure that what we're sending is accurate.
And that you're sending it.
Right, and that we're sending it, and so it's getting to them timely, and that it's accurate. So that's our one supplemental, which really is kind of a wash, funding wise. But other than that, I think that's. Does anybody have any questions?
So, and Brian, I got you. Let Kelly go, and I got you. Okay.
Thank you.
I was just looking at your head count, and so you're reducing your head count by 0.7.
That comes from we hired, when we couldn't, under our previous contract, when we struggled to hire people, we hired a couple of part-time employees just because that was all we could hire, and they really have worked out great. So we're reducing those two, which were full-time positions, to be officially part-time positions, and then using the savings to help fund that court data operations manager position.
And so when you were talking about the possibility of having to have clerks there over the weekends, or longer than you do now, then that would be overtime, that wouldn't be additional?
It would be overtime, yeah. So currently, we take volunteers for who wants to volunteer to be part of the rotation for Saturdays, and have a really great pool of, people who are willing to work that. So it would basically come from our pool of people who work Saturdays.
So if it gets excessive, I would assume you track it and possibly have to ask for another staff person instead of paying overtime?
I guess it would depend on whether we would continue to have volunteers. As part of our union contract, it's fairly lucrative to work on Saturdays. So I do see, that we probably would continue to get volunteers to work that in addition to their regular week shift.
Mr. Sager?
Morning, Kathy. I apologize because I may have missed this. I'm having a little bit of trouble sometimes hearing. But I was just wondering, with regards to the Pre-Trial Fairness Act, is there any requirement for retroactivity? In other words, are there obligations that we have before us for reimbursements for anything that occurred prior to the court action?
Not that we're aware of. At this point, we don't believe so. Nothing that I've been told, that there will be any type of reimbursements. Unlike, it's not really written like this Juvenile Public Act, which pretty much said we need to wipe all balances clean. There's nothing really specific about what we're doing with the bond that we're holding. I guess the best that I've heard from discussions with other counties, there's speculation that there might be kind of a rush on order, people coming and making motions that they want their bond back, that kind of thing. But there's nothing that says automatically we have to just refund the $4 million we're holding. So at this point, we don't believe so.
I have no idea where that happened.
Where that came from.
Sorry.
So we are not intending to do any mass, mass refunding. We won't do any refunding unless we're ordered to refund. And so that might even be, a better question for the state's attorney or the court.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mr. Short.
So I'm hearing, because of the Safety Act, there's going to be a significant decrease in revenue from?
It's hard to say. I guess we assume that there will be some decrease, not really knowing will the bond that the money that we collected on fines and fees that came directly from bond, we were holding with that gone as it dwindles, because obviously we've got some and, it will kind of dwindle through this next year. So it's hard to say whether we'll replace that with, people actually paying their fines and fees.
So, but it's fairly accurate or a fair estimation that it's going to decrease. We just don't know by how much.
Right. I do feel like it's going to decrease, we just don't know by how much.
And costs are going to increase with the anticipation of having more personnel.
Potential, yeah. Also, some unknowns at this point.
Yep. So a lot of it comes out of Springfield, it's kind of wait and see.
Yeah, this one particularly, there's a, there's
And
also a lot
I
of
was also
unknowns.
remiss too, is Judge Camille is also in the audience, is taking copious notes. So, with regard to the-
Just as last.
I know you are.
Just last October, September, we thought this was gonna go in January 1st. We knew that Judge Camille was gonna call us together in April and say, how are we doing? That's what's gonna happen again. It's gonna be, January
Right.
next time, and see how our, with the new procedures, how expenses and revenues are tracking and what adjustments we need to make.
We have another bill that's, we can't go after collections for a certain range of time when people get out of Department of Corrections. We're not completely sure how the circuit clerks are supposed to know when they get out of Department of Corrections. We're still working some of those details out, but, so, some of our collection piece, I think, is gonna look a little different too under this.
And it's important we obviously work on that, because I think the legislation was written with Cook County in mind, and obviously affects everybody else. Mr. Kunkel?
But for sure, the $60,000 plus or minus bonus from the interest income, that goes away, because we'll no longer collect that.
Yeah.
We combined almost $80,000 from the juvie, as far as I was listening to you, and I don't have any writing here. That goes away now on the juvenile end.
Yeah, the juvenile stuff is
We don't know how to
gone.
quantify what we're not going to be able to collect from people who are fined now, and there's no bond to take that from.
Exactly.
So we're looking at, without any wild speculation, $250,000 shortfall?
I would say minimum, minimum probably. I mean, we've applied around 800,000 in bond already this year on criminal cases.
Yeah.
Not all the county, not all the county fees, some of that's to municipality fees and fines, some of that would be to the state.
But that will affect what you come to us for in the end, because there's no other avenue for that revenue anywhere else.
Correct.
Any other questions? Ms. Webber?
Do you anticipate any of those state mandated fees increasing to offset any of these costs?
We haven't really heard anything about that, and
No.
unfortunately, my guess would be no, and even if they were to
It's
increase
election year.
them,
The answer is no.
some of them, we aren't gonna collect it anyway, so, they can increase the fee, but if nobody's paying it, it doesn't really help us.
That's the big one.
But I'm going to guess it's election year. I'm going to guess that you're going to see very little interest in raising fees.
We used to have some teeth in collecting even traffic stuff. We used to be able to put a soft hold on their driver's license if they had unpaid traffic tickets. That went away a couple years ago. So that definitely has, even though traffic tickets definitely still are bread and butter, we don't have the hammer that we used to have with that, where eventually you had to pay your traffic tickets to renew your license. We don't have that soft hold anymore. No, there's,
At all.
And that's the way it's moving, and it's been moving
Right.
that way for the last several years.
Right,
Is to
that
take
there's-
away that financial hammer.
Yeah, there's no enforcement mechanism
And
anymore.
unfortunately, that puts it back on the general taxpayer
Yes.
population, and so we're paying for the wrongdoings of others. The whole thing is way askew, but we don't have time for all that.
Yeah.
No, just that, I don't think the trend will turn, is all I'm saying for us financially. I don't think that trend will change over the next several years.
It does seem like,
on that
it's
road.
gonna get worse before it gets better, I feel like.
Just to be aware. Anything else? Thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you very much.
Really appreciate it. Moving on, Dr. Rain, we have you, Coroner. Yes. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, consensus. I apologize, thank you. See, Kathy does run everything.
You're gonna let Judge Camille go in front of
Morning.
me. How are you?
Good.
All right, I'm gonna try and make this quick and short and sweet. Obviously, you can kind of read the highlights and goals and all that stuff. However, I think over the past probably 2.5, almost 3 years now, the coroner office, we've done a lot of upgrading, put in new policies, procedures, streamlined a lot of things. We get in our final walkthrough as far as our accreditation goes next week, so that'll be done. We're going to probably be coming back in front of you next month because we're incorporating finally our software. We've had some issues as far as trying to find the software program that can integrate with IT and things of that nature, so we kind of got that done. And the grant that we received is almost finished, so we've pretty much used about almost $113,000 for various things throughout the coroner office.
Mike, could I ask you to speak up just a little bit, please?
Sure, no problem. So now we've also, one of the main goals I tried to create was a better working environment. There was a lot of things down there that needed done, not just physically within the, just getting better desks area, better chairs that were falling apart, things of that nature. Let's see. We've also we've been working also with the sheriff on some things, collaborating with some other things with the sheriff's office and things of that nature, which has gone well. I think that's really helped. It'll help in the future when we go out to the scenes in law enforcement and their special task force and things of that nature. One thing I do want to bring up, though, is that for a county of our size, we have the smallest staff. Not just, we're 311,000, something like that. Counties that are even 100,000 less than us have many more employees. And I think because we've streamlined a lot of things and understood where we needed to go with me and the help from my chief deputy, we've really done a good job as far as where we need to take the office. I also have talked with Peter and Carrie, and we're hoping to be able to move some money from the coroner's fund into the general fund, hopefully even next month and next year. Because the coroner fund, I do have some projects. I'm going to be getting a new vehicle. That'll be our last one as far as revamping all the vehicles. We'll be using that out of the coroner fund as well. So there's no cost to the taxpayers there. And then kind of gone through the plan as far as how that's going to go with the vehicles. Every 4 years we'll be buying probably a new one. And we'll just be turning them over because what we can sell them for on the open market after about 4 years is about what we can buy them for. So we'll be replenishing them about every 4 years. They'll still be under warranty. We'll have new vehicles every year. We don't have to worry about breakdowns and holding on to them forever and things of that nature. So I think that's pretty much about it as far as general terms go.
I want to go back.
Sure.
First of all, on behalf of all of us, you have done a remarkable job since taking office on bringing us into the 21st century and really providing those services and amenities that people expect. So, and certification of the office.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Well, I'm going to say that's a lot of me, not just me, it's our staff as well.
Kudos to all of you.
Yes, thank you.
You said where you want to go. Can you elaborate a little bit for us on what you mean by that and where you see that impacting your budget requests, if at all?
Sure. So obviously we did our reclassifications just recently and things of that nature. So to bring kind of what I would consider where they need to be as far as salaries go. Not just our office, but throughout the state and throughout the nation. I mean, it's felt everywhere as far as keeping employees and things of that nature. I think we are pretty much there now as far as, but we expect, and I expect higher standards. And that's, I'm not going to waver on that. So, but as far as the office goes, I know that we have, I know that it's going in front of the board as far as upgrading the board and things of that nature. That'll be a really great thing, not just for now, but for the future. Getting our new software, this will help immensely with our data as far as being able to keep certain data points and things of that nature. Obviously, we work with about 30 different agencies for various things, and everybody's looking for certain data points and things of that nature, and I'm very data driven about a lot of things. So this software will be able to help us get that data pretty much instantaneously. Instead of having to go back into a spreadsheet, count it physically, look through it, it gets cumbersome, really. And it, you know, having the great benefit of the having all the files that we had digitized, that will help immensely with FOIA requests that we're getting and things of that nature. I mean, because it is very cumbersome and time consuming. You know, you have to call facilities, they have to go find the records, they have to go this, they have to send it over, they, you know, and we do get a fair amount of FOIA requests. You know, we get FOIA requests all the time from different people that you would never think, you know. Actually, people just recently from it was mid-80s, somebody asked about a FOIA request for their uncle. You know, they just wanted to know and things of that nature. So it's, you know, so we're able to get that back really probably within a 24-hour period.
What about staff then too, Doctor? I mean,
What
do you see an increase? You made comment
that
we're a
it
small.
depends kind of on how our county is, you know, as far as call-outs. I mean, I know we just had a homicide-suicide recently, but last year we had one homicide. I think the year before we had 2. But we are seeing a very big uptick in suicide rate. That is, right now, I just had the Drug Coalition meeting yesterday, and right now we have, obviously last year our uptick in suicides was quite a bit. It is still on that uptick. We right now, the amount of suicides that we've had this year is equal to 2022 as of right now. So you can still see the trend is still there and things of that nature. So I think that between law enforcement, the county, the Drug Coalition, and everybody that it kind of is involved with the Drug Coalition for sure has done a remarkable job as far as our county goes, because our numbers are always less than the state, less national. So, yeah, so I mean, it just depends on how the trends go, but I guess optimistically, I'm hoping that we can keep our staff the way it is for a long time.
Thank you. Anybody else with any questions?
I just had some questions. So I'm looking at the general fund, and commodities were 16,600, and you're estimating them over 24,000. So it's almost a 50% increase in commodities. Are you purchasing other things?
No, it's just the cost of everything has gone up. You know, we haven't brought that up for a while now, and we've been able to absorb some of that. But basically, the problem, you know, everything has just gone through the roof as far as pricing goes in different things. So that's where we kind of go with that.
And then in the coroner's fund, maybe I'm not understanding it. So there is an intergovernmental, like 4,400 from intergovernmental. And then if you look at expenses, there is operating transfers out of 32,000 and then fund balance enhancement. So can you tell me where?
Carrie?
Just trying to figure out how the cash flow is going.
And Carrie, speak loud enough so
Yes.
Brian can hear you too,
Okay,
please.
so the operating transfers out is referencing the transfer from this fund to the general fund. So if you look on the Fund 100, you'll see an operating transfer in. And that's more just a mechanism to move the money within the bank.
That's when we say thank you.
Yes. Yes.
To cover some of these increased expenses for, like the truly variable costs, like the autopsy transportation or
Well, there's only
supplies.
certain things we can do, certain things we can't do by law. So that's kind of how, we need to.
And then intergovernmental is,
Yeah.
you get some, what's that payment you get once a year from the state?
Oh, I get a payment once a year from the state for death certificates. And so what it is that death certificates throughout the whole state the state gives a certain amount of money per death certificate, and it's equalized per every county. Like, it doesn't matter what population you have, it's equalized. So basically, what was it, 4,400 last year or something like that? So basically, that 4,400 is spread about every county within, the 102 counties by the state. So we get that check.
Anyone else? And we have consensus to move this forward as well as accepted, duly noted. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next up, Sheriff's Department, we have our sheriff as well as Ms. Salgado. And we also know who runs that team.
Can't leave it out, this is the most exciting part.
They both have warrants.
Yeah. Good morning.
You know where to find them. Good morning.
Okay, so I gotta be honest, I kind of missed not
Having a bomb dog?
Yes, doing pictures and, having a little wow factor here, so, but I brought the sheriff, so that's my, that's my wow factor.
We didn't know.
That's your bling.
That's the bling. So, really quick, let's just touch on some of the highlights. As you guys know, we've been in front of you many times talking about our training facility. At the end of this month, we expect the training facility in the Old Village Hall to be just about done. We have furniture coming in a couple weeks, and then we are good to go. So that's been really exciting to watch that transformation take place. In fact, I think we're going to have one of our department head meetings out there, so some of the other leadership in the county can come out there and see that. We are now fully permitted at the firing range, and that's been building up from the ground up. So we are still on task for that. There's one of the air units is coming a little bit later than what we expected. We wanted to kind of open the doors more in February, March, but we're told we're not going to get the air unit until April, and we've been really trying hard to get that sooner, but nonetheless, we're going to stay on that manufacturer, and by the end of spring, we should be able to open the doors there.
Dumb question, totally segueing out. Did you have to meet environmental controls on that equipment with regard to the lead and all that? Did that increase massive cost there, and is that one of the reasons why we're having so much trouble getting the equipment? Because no?
That's not why we're having trouble. We're having trouble just because the manufacturers are having trouble getting parts for it. But our ongoing costs for all of those environmental standards is a big part of what we're going to be paying for the air handling inside the firing range.
Lead mitigation, we're mindful of the lead that goes into the berm, so there's costs that go along with that as well.
I don't know if, outside of Matt, I don't know if anybody else recognized that, but.
Yeah. Another exciting, hopefully exciting, project is our marine unit. So for years, we've been looking at upgrading our marine unit that's been working out of a well, it wasn't like a trailer home, and now.
And not even a nice trailer.
And not even a nice one. So we've had a great partnership with the city of McHenry out at Miller Park to build a new building which will house our Marine deputies. It will give them indoor plumbing, which is something that is a nice perk at your job. And it'll also give outdoor bathrooms to the city. So they're looking at that park. That's one of their boat launches, and they have future plans for that too. We did have our first bid opening, and I had a heart attack because it was so high. So we've done some value engineering on the building, and we are going back out to bid this Friday. So we are hoping that with some of the efforts that McHenry and Wolder Architects and the Sheriff's Office have put together, that will come down so we can move this project forward.
Give us a hint. Where did they come in at? Just so we have an idea of.
So about 900,000 was the average. Some above, not many below. So we have right now, we have budgeted 500,000 for that building.
I'm sorry to cut you off. To build on that, we reached out to MCC. We're trying to explore partnerships with our community college, use their construction program that kind of really hasn't gone anywhere. I'm going to reach out to Harper too, because I'm not just settling on spending $900,000 when we can maybe build a partnership. So we talked a little bit about using McHenry High Schools because they helped with the riverfront, but there were some challenges that came with that. So I think the scope of this project is a little bit different. But we are exploring other options in hopes to not run into a huge cost for the county, but also something cool that you can show that we're working with our local community on. So we're exploring that as well.
A lot of excitement on that. PSW program, you guys had the presentation earlier. I know the sheriff wants to talk about the funding really quick on that.
So through the Illinois Sheriff's Association and with the upcoming legislation, there is current legislation in effect for, I believe it's East St. Louis, Peoria, Aurora, and Waukegan. They got funding through the state for their police social work programs. That was a $10 million funding revenue for those agencies. Only 9.6 was actually funded. I am going to propose that our program, which meets every single one of the bullet points for that statute, be added to that list. So I will be sharing that.
That's on our legislative agenda, obviously.
I will be sharing that with all of you to reach out to your local, legislatures to be on them about that. I think that's important. Like Amy and Alana had talked about, Speaker Welch came and visited that this past year, actually maybe a little bit over a year ago. And they all agree that this is the pilot program. Like Amy said, King County has reached out to us. Other agencies have reached out to us to find out, why are we doing it so well. So I think we should ask all the people that are saying we're doing a great job, put their money where the mouth is, and ask for that assistance too, which would be great on our tax base as well. So once that's finalized, I will share that with all of you so that you guys can push that as well for us.
We are also working on updating the contracts with the municipalities for that program, so those go through the end of April. We now, with the SOMA program that we've been using for case management with PSWs, we're really getting the data in, so we're going to be able to bring to our municipal partners some good information when we come back to them and show them what the numbers look like and what we're going to be asking them for the new contract.
Do you still see it the same breakout?
So the municipalities we brought in lower than what their commitment really should be. So we started the program as being a third, a third, a third. So we had a third commitment from the mental health board moving forward. It was going to be a third from the municipal partners, and then the county had committed a third. The goal was, as we've progressed, to kind of depend less on county general funds and more on different grant programs, including mental health board and others that are out there, and the municipal partners.
And they're prepared for that?
They
understand that there's going to be an increase, but
Correct.
I don't know if...
I didn't mean to look at you, Pete.
But the reality is that the cost increase to fund the municipalities third would be an extremely large increase. So we don't want to get to the point where The municipalities may say, we don't need this program, we'll just hire their own, but even add a moderate increase, they still can't bring their own police social worker at the price that they're paying.
That's kind of, again, it's just for information, so we have a perspective.
Yes.
But I would
Sure.
concur, the value
Yes.
of being able to do the program versus making it so expensive that there's really no value
Right.
to the.
Correct.
Right.
We went in low because we wanted to get 19 participating police
Okay.
agencies.
Yeah,
I mean, how much stronger is that than saying we got 11 or 8? So we went in low, we got them, whet their appetite, we delivered great service.
Sure.
Now we need to.
I think that's important information, just so you guys understand that when we have these discussions, we're going to be dealing with huge amounts of asks and money expenditures, et cetera. I want to make sure that people understand that there is a value sometimes to the county taking the lead and taking a little bit more of the financial burden. So that was my only, I wasn't questioning anybody else.
Sure. Another quick highlight, so October 28th, we're having our open house, so everything I couldn't show you today, as far as glamour, will be at our open house, October 28th. Yeah, so please come and bring your family. It's a family event. We may be doing trunk
Trunk or treat, I think, is going to be.
Yes, so it's right before Halloween, so we're gonna have some fun with it. Goals, again, are get our training facility and firing range up and running, maybe bring on some more municipal partners. We had the training facility board contract in front of you. We're looking forward to expanding some of our partnership there as well. All right, so getting into the actual budget, personnel-wise, there was one headcount increase. That is due to a supplemental request. We started a pilot program with MCC, and I've talked to you guys about this, with 2 internships. So MCC has a program that they'll pay 65% of the internship salary up to, it's 250 hours. And then we get to have that person here with us. The sheriff has worked with MCC in their criminology program, and we created 2 desk deputy internship positions. Each are part-time, paid. And although we're gonna go above the 250 hours from MCC, because really that's not a lot of time, so we created this program for a year, because there's training, there's so much to learn, and their program is 2 years anyway. So this is gonna help them really understand what the commitment is and what law enforcement looks like, and it really truly helps us by having those individuals there. And it also builds the recruitment pool. I'm hoping that this kicks off and the municipalities do it too, because recruiting right now is one of our top priorities. It is tough. I know everywhere, but in law enforcement, it's pretty tough.
Just on a side note of recruitment, we're actually going to partner with McHenry High School for doing a high school internship program. McHenry City Police Department already does it, so we're going to join up with that as well.
Nice.
That's in the works.
Great. Okay, general fund, so we have this in front of you. The sheriff has really done a yeoman's job, I think, at working within the traditional maintenance budget theory. There are things that have gone up. So our 2 largest contracts are inmate healthcare and inmate food. Those have gone up. Our vehicle parts, not just the vehicles, but the everyday parts that we use to keep the fleet up and running is unbelievable, and we're at the mercy, of the companies out there. So we've tried to do a very good job at keeping those costs down while still being able to operate. There's very little personnel. You'll see a supplement on the general fund. That's our internships. That's for both of them. And then commodities is just the increases in different contracts that we're trying to mitigate. We are going into this next year kind of status quo regarding the Safety Reform Act. So we worked with administration to try to determine how to handle this, but like Pete said, prior to this, we're going to be before you guys with updates probably quarterly. So if we need to adjust anything, we can do it at that time, but we didn't want to make any changes right now before we know what's really going to happen.
And I'm going to assume during our budget talks, we're going to talk about that possibility as we go on and having some money in reserves if there are significant.
Yeah,
increases.
reserves or maybe, yeah.
Whatever.
Maybe we got it someplace where we don't need it as much, because of how operations have changed, I guess.
But we're gonna be somewhat we're gonna have to be somewhat fluid, are we not? As we-
Absolutely, and
Okay,
as I say, it's almost the exact conversation we had last September and October, when we thought this was gonna happen January 1st. We did put more money into this budget in several areas, the one we're already living in, so that's gonna help.
And then just before we leave the general fund, we have the capital outlay that is for the Marine unit building. DUI conviction fund, that one kind of speaks for itself. This is a restricted fund, there's rules on how you can use it. We typically use it for training and different equipment for radar and whatnot. Our next fund is inmate welfare. Inmate welfare is, again, what we get from the commissions that come out of our phone in the commissary. So those have been pretty steady that we've been getting, so. Any questions on those funds? There's only a couple that aren't in here.
I'm gonna go to Mr. Sager first, and then we'll come back to Ms. Wagner. Brian?
Thanks, Sheriff. Thank you, Sheriff. I may have kind of missed this, but certainly maintenance of the fleet is really, really important, and you talked about having to buy new vehicles and that type of thing. But do we have an in-house person, or do you all have an in-house person that's responsible for fleet? Does that go to Public Works, or is that all subcontracted?
Good question. So we do have in-house mechanics. So we have a fleet manager, and then we have 4 mechanics that work under him. So that's all in-house. Very rarely do we have to send things out to be worked on.
One of the good things that Rob has done down at the fleet is that we are certified to do recall work through Mopar. So we actually get refunded from Mopar to pay for the fleet's time when they do all the recall work on the vehicles and what have you.
Mopar's Chrysler?
Jeep, Dodge, Ram.
Yep.
Yep.
And Brian, the garage services all the county vehicles with the exception of DOT.
Correct.
So it's not just the sheriff's.
Okay. And that particular work, have we seen a really significant increase in inputs and costs of parts there? What is that portion of the budget look like?
So we've increased, well, we're pretty much out of money for this year. So, and we saw it coming, but there's not much that we can do. So next year, we increase that line by about 30%, and we're hoping it's gonna kind of taper off. I'm being told the prices aren't really gonna go back down. So we're looking at where we're at now and increasing the budget by that much.
And is there a significant lag time getting parts? What's the situation there?
We have not had a significant lag time with the everyday parts that we've been needing, so that's been good. We order locally, so Napa's delivering to us on a daily basis, so.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ms. Wagner?
So looking at the general fund, your fees and charges are actually reduced by 13%. What is the cost for?
Yeah, so we anticipate our revenues going down with the new Safety Act. So we tried to be conservative on that, but that's where that's coming from.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
I also just want to put it out there that the police social work program does use the mental health board. So when we're talking about our mental health board and the budget at some point later this year, just keep that in mind.
Any other questions? Mr. Kunkel?
More of a comment, obviously with the Safety Act and of course everybody's cost and everything going up. The budget's kind of a breath of fresh air. To see not escalating more than it has, so it's really nice.
We've been really trying hard to stay within
you can tell
the
that,
parameters.
obviously. I realize it's a group out there, Rob,
Yeah,
including you guys
oh, yeah.
included, but these guys are working at this hard, so hopefully it stays and holds.
Yes.
Great.
Take that back to the guys
Oh, well.
and gals.
Absolutely.
But
And
take that
especially
back
with the new
that we
staff, I mean, this was kind of a learning curve for a lot of us.
Yeah.
I mean, we're lucky to have Sandy that, you know, understands this process, but I think one of the philosophies that we had is each chief really was responsible for his respective area as he's running his own business. And we wanted to make sure that we pay taxes too, which helps, we have that in our back of our minds as well. So how we can figure out moving people, we just announced last week, we made a lot of changes where we changed personnel in areas to address and get in front of the Safety Act, which is a little bit outside of the box, and we're going to be asking, just like everyone else, people to do a little bit more with the same amount, and then that's when, we'll continuously be monitoring it. And if it means that, I'm not going to sacrifice my guys and gals out there, their own well-being to, save a buck or two. So but we're prepared for it, and I think, Matt, appreciate the kind words. We did put a lot of work into this one, and, we'll keep getting better at it, I'm sure.
And I think what you're hearing is, and again, share with everyone, we got your back.
I appreciate that.
And I think that that's extraordinarily important for them to realize that the decision makers and policy.
Well, I talk about that in front of the other sheriffs, and they're all jealous that, that the sentiment isn't the same. I've heard some horror stories that, county board and sheriffs are just at complete opposite ends, and it makes that not easy. So we do appreciate the support from you guys and in the community as a whole. I think that's, that's important out here at least.
Yes. So really quick too, supplementals. So the supplemental for the internships, that is just to kind of solidify that. We've worked with HR all year on doing the pilot program, but that's just to solidify that. The 8-car printers is just in there. If there is money in the budget, we're going to do that. That's a very low amount, but that's, in fact, we actually have a higher need than
Well,
8 now.
and actually to build on that, Kathy had just pushed out, there's money in their ticket program that they had solicited numbers. So we are actually, I talked to her out in the hallway about it, so we're going to try to offset that a little bit, but obviously this is a need right away, and I don't know how soon that grant would come through.
The evidence barn and property security upgrade. So we did have inserted in there is a little bit of background from our lieutenant out there. So the evidence barn, we've had a heck of a time over the last 10 years. More. Yes. It's out in the boondocks. So keeping good security out there has been really tough. We worked with our IT department to get us a quote, and the quote's a little bit pricey, but for what we keep out there and really the security that is needed, this just makes sense, and I'm sure the sheriff will bring you guys out there anytime. If it's in Heartland, if you know where it is, where our archive building is right before the township offices, we need something out there.
So I was an evidence sergeant in 2013. And prior to me being there, that technology has been in place. There's a computer in there that I had to go out and just blow the dust off so that the security would continue to work. I mean, the agency has done a really good job of not asking for a lot out there, and we're just asking to catch up to the times now with that the security that's out there.
And what I did not see in the packet was our build-out at the police side of the training facility. So when we give you the tour of the training facility, the upgrades that we've done were on the municipal side. So there's still the police side, which we're hoping in the future to move our police social worker program into, because they'll have their own entrance, it's private. MEOT, having MEOT have a station there, and maybe even an evidence area. So that's individuals from all of the local law enforcement agencies. So anytime there's something big that needs to be investigated, they all come together, and right now they jump from agency to agency. They don't really have a home, so we're hoping to make that a home.
What is MEOT?
The Major Investigative Assistance Team. So they are comprised of detectives detectives and supervisors of all the agencies that are in the county. So when a big incident happens, they have an officer-involved shooting / in custody death team, a major crime team, an evidence team, and then there's future talks about moving into a major crash team as well. So they have never had a home. Their home usually is out of a van that's parked somewhere. So this gives them a place where they actually can store all their stuff, and It's not centrally located where you would like it, but the majority of cases that they have are usually occur in the southeast quadrant where the majority of our population is. So it's nice that they actually have a home now.
Okay. So you'll see that when the board reviews all the supplementals, it's about 156,000. It's literally for outlets, because everything was cut. So it's for outlets, it's for internet connections, phone lines throughout that building, and
Basically the infrastructure then.
yes.
Exactly, yeah. So that, and the other part, when the police social work program will have a permanent home, right now we're on a community foundation, which they've been awesome partners for. We're moving them to that home. We've identified a space where they can actually have a family room so that people actually can come, that their clients can go there, which is tucked in the back corner. No one knows they're there. They have their own entrance. It'll be nice to kind of have it out of the eyes of people, as opposed to downtown Crystal Lake, and they really can't meet with clients there. It's difficult. So that'll be an added bonus.
Any other questions? Do I have a consensus to move the budget as presented forward to the?
Yes.
Right,
Great.
duly noted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Are you sticking around for mayor commission too?
I can do that.
Okay.
You know what, I'll stick around
Yeah?
to support Carrie when
Okay.
she does
Thanks.
mayor commission.
I am going to our safety event, so take care, guys.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have court services. Seth, you want to join us? Mr. Kraus, sorry. Dan, you're
I
coming
do
too?
believe we're,
You're doing it
we're taking
together?
two.
Yeah, okay. Please, Mr. Wallace, then too. And obviously the honorable.
I just follow their lead. What do you want to hear from first?
I follow Kathy's. Well, it doesn't really matter. It says services administration. So why don't you guys determine who wants to lead off and
What, if you don't mind, I have some prepared
Please.
thoughts that I wanted to share, and it came up
We
during
are
our
deeply
work group.
appreciative of your attendance and willingness to
Oh, it's a
share.
team effort. Well, we have various teammates here, as Dan says, we call ourselves, and that's true. We really work together. But, my remarks, Pam, and we've known each other, a few too many years. But what you and Rob Tateman were just saying, I mean, we have the same experience with the judiciary. About 3 weeks ago, this Friday, I was sitting in a room with all the chief judges of the state, and like Mr. Kunkel was saying, or somebody was saying, I took, we might get the short end of the stick up here and this and that. Seriously, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, all these judges, and I put my hand up and I say, I don't want to get penalized to be a victim of our own success. We've been working really hard at this.
No
We
good deal.
collaborate. Then it goes to something called public defender fees. We have a line on getting some cash. And the chiefs are talking about, send it to me. And I'm like, why would I send it to me? I'm going to put Peter Austin's name on the check, or Mike Bueller's, or, get it to you all because we collaborate. And I don't think we've ever had that issue. And, that was really my first comment. On behalf of our circuit, thank you for the collaboration. Thank you for, meeting our needs and helping us serve the people of the county. We have 19 judges, one retiring. We're going to replace Judge Meyer soon. We pay taxes here, we work here, we live here, we play here. We really believe it's a good place to be. And I've had some, offline discussions, as we all have had with the sheriff. And, it's true. What we do really resonates in our lives and what we enjoy. We do feel blessed to have the positions we do and help the people of the county address issues in meaningful and thoughtful ways. And I really want to underscore that. We're slammed, we're busy, work early, work late. My coppage is here usually at 5 o'clock to turn on the lights. And then I'm often here, I was here, 5:30 or so last night. That's what we do. We also work statewide to impact what we can in a positive way. We try. I think a third of our 19 judges teach the other judges at our educational conference every 2 years, and that's not with every circuit, but we do our part. Dan Wallace does. He's the expert on case management, developing efficiencies, honest to goodness, throughout the state. Kathy Keefe, she's very involved in what the state Supreme Court does and how they try to roll out stuff. So we're having positive impacts, but we also serve on a lot of commissions, committees, task force of the Supreme Court, which oversees our court system, but also the legal system. If you read Chief Justice Tice's opinion on the Safety Act, it starts with, we commissioned they created a commission to study pretrial services. That's how she starts her opinion in affirming it. So the Supreme Court is a very viable entity. We respect them. I like them. I work with them, but we get what we get. We try to do our part to, I'm not going to say influence it, but to interact. We don't always agree on what we get, but we try to stay in our lane and follow the law. We show up. We respect them, all of us, those who we serve, and and each other. A few concluding thoughts. In various ways, we're dealing with, I put unprecedented, unfunded mandate, tongue twisters, in a type of inflation and other societal changes. And I was sitting with family at the Marion volleyball game yesterday, and I said, hey, challenging times, and he said, everywhere, not just in here, in the state, everywhere, but that's just where we find ourselves. So, believe it or not, the way we look at what we're presenting, this is my segue to Dan and Seth, we're essentially presenting a maintenance budget, which I believe is our charge from our whole days in local government. It's always maintenance. We're merely asking.
Sacrificing services.
Well, we're merely asking what we need rather than what we want.
Right.
Dan knows the list of wants. He keeps putting them in the drawer. It says, let's get what we need first. So besides inflation and labor costs, two things are really driving increases in our budget. One, DUI court funding. We have, I'm kind of proud, we started just in the last few months our own problem-solving court division. Mike Feed here does a great job with that. And DUI funding, as you all may know, if you crunch the numbers, we were blessed with a lot of state and federal funding. Well, that kind of left our equation, and that stinks. Why does it stink in part? Again, the state has mandated the DUI courts. So whether we like it or not, that aspect is mandated, but candidly, and Dan has the stats on this, we're seeing success. We're seeing successful results. The Pretrial Fairness Act, which is that component of the Safety Act that really plagues or challenges us, I shouldn't say challenges us. The Safety Act more so challenges law enforcement. It really does, dealing with immunities and direction of law enforcement. But the Pretrial Fairness Act, we can't detain people, so we need to, I just wrote a piece, we're talking to the Bar Association over the lunch hour for electronic monitoring. That's spiking that aspect of our budget. That all stinks, but it's kind of what we're confronted with. So what I'll conclude with, and I have a couple of points to address a couple of things that came up, I feel we're doing what we can, and trust me when I tell you this, I'm out there. I mean,
No
Chief
doubt.
Justice Tice, she's great, but I'll give you two quick stories, and they're important stories. In this Safety Act, there's $10 million has been allotted for public defenders, to show you what we're trying to do. $10 million outside of Cook County. So Dan and I say, what's the fair way to do that? Population, right? So our 4% of the outside of Cook County, we got the numbers. So our number, $409,000. The number we're getting, 95. And then you talk about being a victim of our own success. So, she's in charge, and I respect that. Okay, I'm elected here, but it's like, wow. So then I state a few more things. We've been doing this every step of the way. We've been fighting and dealing with what Seth and his predecessors have done. We have a model for pretrial services in the state. I don't know if you all know this, we do. So that's an instant. And then, the last thing, just a specific thing that Brian Sager brought up, pre-PFA, as I call it, pretrial fairness refunds. Of course, I always say no legal advice, no advisory opinions, Brian. I think you've heard me say that today. But I'll just comment just to address that issue. Kathy kind of deferred a little bit. nothing in the Pretrial Fairness Act talks about changing what has already come to be. And in trainings throughout the state, one of the leaders in the state truly is Clint Hull. He's the chief in Kane. You know, that's kind of silent, it's a gray area. I don't want to encourage litigation. We just deal with what we get. But it was said at this meeting of chief judges 3 weeks ago that there's anticipation that there is going to be some litigation to figure out.
Definitively.
Pam, I'd like to think the General Assembly, you all mentioned Chris Welch, great guy. I presume, the law presumes that they're getting it right. But yeah, I think there are some other things to follow, but it has been a work in progress. I don't want to bore you with how many meetings we've had, how many meetings we had this week. This is our I think at least since I've been chief, or maybe in my 18 and a half years, this is my busiest week in the judiciary, and I'm honored, privileged, I am, to come here and talk for our court with you also with that.
Can I, real quickly before you start, two comments come to mind. One, thank you again for the efforts and the great job. Make sure that you pass that culture down to those who come after you. I think it's extraordinarily important. We're trying to do the same when the board changes.
Good point.
Is to continue that culture of collaboration. And then please, also take the opportunity during these budget discussions, not just to get what you need, but also to prepare us for what you're going to want to continue to provide the excellent services that we provide here. Don't ever not tell us, because I don't want it to be surprises as we move forward in the next several years. So do share that with us.
Thanks.
And we appreciate the maintenance budget. I mean, we do. But again, I don't want us to cheat those people that we're all serving, because we're trying to keep our costs down and we're not keeping up with what's really required. You know, it's an awkward balance, but I'm also teaching here too. We need to understand that. So
yeah, we
more than appreciate our working relationship.
Yeah, and Pam, we constantly debate. You know, there's money out there. You gotta careful what you ask for, right? There are ties, and we continue to look at that. But yeah, we're probably, you know, by the way, Tiffany Davis was here, talk about positive change, paying it down. It's great to work with her. I got to move people around, and she's the head of our criminal division. So she's kind of overseeing our Pretrial Fairness Act implication. And Mike Feeder was gonna be here, but he's been working since before 9. Tiffany ran, she has a jury that came back at 9:15. We tried to delay it as long as we could, but they sent her greens. They wanted to be here. If you have questions of them, I'll be happy to relay them and get them back to you.
We should take an opportunity sometime when it's slow to see if we can't bring in several of our judges just to say, hey, right? I mean, I know all of them, but I've been around for a really, really long time.
Yeah, no, it's a good
And
idea.
had previous experiences, but it might not be a bad thing just to, again, just to say hello and what courts they're affiliated with and responsible for.
Absolutely.
Kind of like our social work program. So, all right. Thank you.
That's okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and jump in. This won't be my usual budget presentation, so we'll start off on that. There aren't going to be any pictures of me and Scott Hartman fishing this year. It's not that we don't collaborate still, we still do. We love our relationship with county administration. It's just, well, I was told from a very wise person told me that I was being a little too negative in this presentation. So I took a step back, we took a look at it, and while there's some challenges and some difficulties, we're still going to continue to do our best. So 2023, well, Safety Act, PFA implementation, September 15th, it's going to be right off the bat have some challenges for us. Court services is going to be impacted. We're going to be impacted. But 2014 is going to even be more difficult, okay?
And if I may, Dan.
Of course, jump in.
Just to your point, Pam, of, you know, kind of letting you guys know what's in the offing. You already heard our resolution on data collection. That's not complete yet. We'll have a third portion of that for the problem-solving collection. But most importantly is that center bullet there. We will be coming forward likely at the end of this month for a detention, a resolution to increase our detention budget. The King County Detention Center increased their daily cost for kiddos to be there significantly at the end of last year. And so we've been trying to kind of limp along and pay for things out of other funds
Funds.
or,
Line item.
you know, line items, but it's come to a point where we will be coming forward with that, so.
Do you have an idea of what that looks like?
Somewhere between probably 50 and 75,000 to cover the rest of the year. And we'll talk more about detention and placement here in a little bit.
That doesn't mean it's just automatically that high next year. It's your experience this year, numbers are up.
Thank you
costs
for the
are up, but
clarification, right?
The whole premise of all this is we can't budget for the worst case scenario. Trust you guys, you said it, we got your back, tell us what you need, get it. Don't budget for the worst case scenario.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So let's talk about some good stuff, specialty courts. The judge already brought up some challenges we've got with our DUI program. Took a look this morning at recidivism rates. Looked all the way back to 2010. I also compared it to the latest numbers I had coming out of IDOC. IDOC recidivism rate's 43% within 3 years. Ours is 24% going all the way back to 2010. So that's really good start in, I would say, that program's resume there. The irony is, this same study talks about how 96% of the population that's admitted to prison comes back to their community. So they're coming back to Crystal Lake, Algonquin, Lake in the Hills, McHenry, once they've been to prison. So if we're able to get better results, and they're going to still be in the community, and they're going to come back to the community if they go to IDOC, our outcomes are better. So let's talk costs for a second. So one thing real quick, those of you who don't know me, I am a data person. Give me the data, let me call it, let me cut it, let me look at it, and see what I can come up with. We are in the process of doing a meta-analysis of all of the specialty court programs. I've worked with all of our justice partners. I've worked with the Illinois State Police to get national arrest data on anybody who's been in our program since the very beginning. We're going to be looking at over 60 independent variables, everything from demographics, education, our services, whether somebody's married or not, and look at absolutely everything. And look truly at national recidivism rates. So that's coming. There's been a lot going on lately with the Safety Act, so haven't quite gotten to the fun part of the analysis. So cost to incarcerate a person in prison, according to Statesville, it's $51,925 a year. Their institute did a study, it's a little dated, back in 2015, $33,000. I'm going to guess that's gone up quite a bit. Looking at our specialty court program, right there at the bottom, $6,853.47, give or take a couple bucks. We looked at absolutely everything. Entire budget for the problem-solving courts, assess folks, in court services, drug testing, everything. Benefits, wrapped it all in, divided it all out by the number of people that we serviced last year, and that's our total. So going back to my previous slide, we do it better, and we do it cheaper, and we have better outcomes. Another thing, and I know Kathy left, this is something some of you might have seen or we've talked about in the past. This is, I'm going to brag on Kathy and Kathy's folks for just a moment here. This is amazing stuff. This is a computer program that was designed in collaboration with myself and David Kozlowski, the Integrated Justice Manager who works in Kathy's office. This started as a conversation during COVID. You know, how can we move documents electronically? How can we create documents? You know, all the germs, and we didn't know all the things that we know now, and how can we pass documents around and move them through the system without having to print anything off? Well, from that initial conversation about literally rights court, which is really ironic because now with the Safety Act, it's coming full circle. You know, how can we do this? So this program was developed and went live 2.3 years ago, and we've generated almost 30,000 documents electronically. Now, when I say generated, they come into the system, they get processed, they go through the system, they go into on-base, everything gets updated, and nobody has to touch them. It happens like that. Well, that equates to about 1.67 full-time employees. Real numbers. So David, and I've talked to Scott Hartman and to Peter about this. You know, David is amazing at what he can do from a technology standpoint. So much so that we're actually presenting this at an international conference next month. So I'm very proud of this. I'm proud of the work that he's done. I'm proud of the work that Kathy's office has done. Talk about collaboration. Again, like the sheriff said, we don't have the typical relationships that other organizations have. Why? Because we're all rowing in the same direction. We're all working together for a common goal, you know, the betterment of the community. So we're able to accomplish things that other places just simply can't. And my gosh, I love that. I love being out front. I like being out in front of you know, the state and the nation and showing off what we can do here. So here's an example, by the way. That's a document on the left. That's an actual sentencing document. A little hard to read. Approach the bench. We strip all the non-ancillary information away. It's legible. Oh, no, by the way, everybody gets a copy of this electronically. We don't have to make copies. And people get email notifications that something's actually happened or something's been filed. So it's an amazing thing. So let's get into the budgets. Seth.
Well, we are putting forward a maintenance budget to you all for the general fund and our probation service fee fund for 2024. It did take some moving things around, which we'll get into a little bit later, as far as some things coming out of our budget and moving over to the court. But generally speaking, we are putting forward a maintenance budget and no supplementals for 2024 from probation and court services.
I can't say that. We started with a maintenance budget, and so let's start.
Depends how we define it. Dave.
Yeah, that's how we define it. I like that. Okay, so let's start off with special projects. DUI court, as the judge mentioned, DUI court was funded with a BJA grant. We moved to an IDOT grant. Now we're pending a request to the Mental Board, $152,591. Are we going to get it? Don't know. If we don't have the funding, there's only one place for us to go, and that's to the general fund. The other thing too, I am asking for a supplemental here for rent. The Office of Special Project is not housed in the county building. It is actually housed across the street at 400 Russell. We've been paying rent out of the dollars that we collect via the fees. Unfortunately, fees are way down, and they're going to be worse, I think, after the Safety Act comes into effect. So again, there's only one place for us to go to these costs. Safety Act. So let's get into some of the other stuff. As Judge mentioned, we didn't ask for it. They didn't bother to ask us. I really wish they would have, but they didn't. But now we've got to deal with what we've been given and what's been found constitutional. We have worked extremely hard. And when I say extremely hard, I mean hours have gone into this thing. I've been up at 4 o'clock in the morning sending emails about this stuff. And what about this? And what about that? And how do we do this? And how do we do that? You know, all trying to lessen the impact. Because some places just simply went, yep, we're going to do court 7 days a week. Open up the buildings, get everybody on board. Hang on, get the checks out. We didn't want to do that. So, you know, we're not going to do Sunday court at this time. We've figured out a way that we can implement it, hopefully, without having to do hearings on Sunday. You know, we're still going to be required to do detention hearings on Saturdays and holidays. So we do rights court now on Saturdays and holidays. It might be a little bit elongated. We'll have to see. A lot of it depends. This thing is so complicated that, you know, it literally begins with the discretion of the police officer on the street. And if they exercise their discretion on that end, it may not have as big of an effect on this end. But if they don't, it could have a tremendous impact on what we do. And that's why all the meetings, all the stakeholders, you know, there's one going on right now at MCC, you know, with all the police agencies. We've got one at noon. We're doing a walkthrough on Thursday about how we're going to do all this stuff. So there's costs involved. We're going to be lucky if we can recoup much of it, if any. We'll see. But again, the good news here, we're going to continue to set that standard. You know, the stuff that Seth and his team members down in court services have done an amazing job. They will continue to do an amazing job. They're still going to provide the quality service for the judges, so the judges can make decisions. And we're going to lead the way.
I'm going to make a comment, and I'm looking at Peter. I'm assuming we're going to be tracking the additional expenses that implementation of this act is costing us. Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Again, there are elements we already moved into this budget in terms of personnel. There's additional personnel coming in the next budget.
I meant in terms of informing our public, our constituents, as well as informing our legislators exactly what it's costing to make all the.
I gotta interject. I talk about
No,
those
no.
public defender fees. So there were two add-ons. One was, how do you account for it? I says, well, if this is all we're getting, you might as well just give a check, Peter Austin, AUSD. But the other add-on, well, you know, and it was discussed, well, this is for additional futuristic public defender fees. And I said, well, wait a minute, me and a couple other chiefs, wait a minute, you were waiting for us to ramp up? This was supposed to go live January 1st, right? We got ready for it back then. Then there was the delay until September 18. We're ready. You know, Mark Cook, well, he was back there whining or something. But no, burden's going to be on him. Burden's going to be on the state's attorney. Arguably, you know, there's a debate. But yeah, you know, we've already done so much. So it's not next week, next month. And you know, Pam, trust me, I said, what's everybody been doing? You told us it's January 1st. We were ready January 1. Then now there's some add-ons. And anyway, but wow.
No,
It's a good idea. It's
Again,
great.
I just think that, you know, we deal with it and we don't even understand all the intricacies. I can't imagine what the general public, and again, our legislative representatives understand the impact. And I have a question at the end, which is beyond the finances, so remembering. But yeah, thank you. I think it's important.
So, electronic monitoring on the pretrial side of things. Anticipating $175,000. I originally started this at $250,000, and then conversations with Seth, trying to take a historical look. We came down to the $175,000. $20,000 of that is actually moving money out of Seth's budget into the court administration budget. Now, the unfortunate thing about some of this is that ability to pay is kind of off the table. If they can't pay it, somebody's going to pay it. And the statute actually looks at the civil law, which gives us how you determine indigency. Well, short Reader's Digest version, if you're getting any type of public service or public aid, 100%, non-discretionary. Not another question can be asked. It's just, that's the law. So if that's where it is, we can't even charge them. Now, maybe we can put some of this on the backside, you know, in the form of costs, but if there's no real hammer on the back end, what's going to happen is it's going to be taken, judgment's going to be taken, it'll get turned over to collections, and you'll see it whenever.
And that is a new expense because historically the defendant has to pay that upfront in order to have a GPS monitor on their leg. And under the Act, the Pretrial Fairness Act, that inability to pay is not a reason not to release them or to use that technology.
They're more motivated to find the money when it was
Well,
out of jail.
yeah.
Right.
So another area that is changing in our budget substantially is with the juvenile detention and placement. Now, I kind of alluded to the need for a resolution here yet this year on juvenile detention. These both things, juvenile detention and placement, have historically been in our budget, the court services budget. However, with the increase in cost and you know, some changes to the judiciary, we felt it best to move the whole detention budget over to the court. The court determines when a minor needs to be in placement or out of placement, so we figured that was within the court's purview to have that budget there. We are also moving the placement budget to the court. Same concept, that the court determines when a minor goes into or out of placement, and so we're moving money over there as well, and the associated general funds to go with it. As far as placement though, of particular note, and Kathy kind of alluded to the juvenile fees and fines going away effective July 28th of this year. It costs us $220,000 a year to put a minor in placement, one minor, at a residential sex offender placement here in Illinois.
220?
220. $600 plus a day.
For a juvenile, you said.
For a juvenile. And historically, we would collect up to 20% in parental responsibility or parental reimbursement. With that juvenile legislation that passed and was signed into law, the ability to collect even that 20% is gone. We are working towards programming in the community that we'll be able to maybe utilize in lieu of placement. And we are certainly always trying to minimize our use of detention, but some minors just need to be there for the safety of themselves or the community. So we've had to really offset some of, in moving this money over to the court or these expenses, we are utilizing more of our probation service fee fund to cover some of the other expenses. Yes.
What is the difference between juvenile detention and placement?
Great question. So detention is a secured locked facility that's like juvenile jail. That's where we have an IGA with Kane, and we use their facility to house our minors.
So is Kendall, Page?
Yes, Kendall, DuPage, I think DeKalb. So there's 6 or 7 other counties that house their minors at Kane County. Placement is typically post-disposition, so the minor's been sentenced, but they cannot remain in the community. We historically have 2 kinds of placement that we use in Illinois: sex offenders, so minors who offend on other minors. And that's the $602 a day, $220,000 a year placement. And then the other one that we use is a place called Focus House, which is more behavioral, extreme behavioral issues that we can place a minor at there. That is, I think it's either $250 or $300 a day, so about half of the cost. We try to minimize the use of placement where we can, because neither of those places are close. And so, you know, these minors can go there for 6 months to a year or longer, but ultimately they're going to come back to the community. And when a placement is far away, it's hard for the parents or the guardian to be there and to be engaged and active in the treatment, which makes the likelihood that the child is going to be successful upon return to the community much lower. So those are the 2 we historically use. They've kind of dried up over the years as well. There used to be more. We used to place some kids out of state more. I personally had a kid in Boys Town out in Omaha. But there are challenges to out-of-state placement above and beyond what I've already kind of laid out.
So when you talk about unfunded mandates, and by the way, this was the original problem-solving court. 1988, I think the Juvenile Act was passed. I was assigned to the juvenile court. I didn't even know we had a juvenile court. You know, I was a commercial local government lawyer. And, you know, it's like, yeah, do this. We want to really give the kid a chance to get to mainstream. So, yeah, this is something we struggle with. We have, I'll just say off the record, discussions internally about actually what some of us are doing or not doing. You know, each judge stands on his or her own oath and ideology and analysis, but yeah, this, you know, when we looked at these numbers, it's like, huh? But you know, that's the push and the balance.
And I want to publicly applaud and recognize the work again that South and his companies do, because juveniles are hard. Because it isn't just the juvenile, you're dealing with the entire family. And sometimes some of these families can have an awful lot of issues that are very hard to overcome. And so trying to do more in the community, again, going back to my previous comments about our specialty courts, you know, Judge's comments well taken. The original specialty court was juvenile court. You take a kid and you move them and put them in the best environment you possibly can, and then what do you do with them? You put them right back in the same environment with the same people, places, and things that cause the issue, help cause the issue in the beginning. You wind up with a failure rate of over 50%, but yet you're spending $200,000. You know, so again, the work that they do, other circuits aren't doing this. Other circuits aren't doing this. This is something they're doing. So again, shining star for them. Go ahead, Seth.
This one's mine too. So, you guys already heard me on the probation service fee funds needed for this AOIC data collection. The intent is clear. It is to ensure equal access and delivery of justice. And so far, $255,710 of probation service fees have got us to where we're at now. That work is still being done by our vendor and will continue through 23 into 24. The third piece, though, will be that problem-solving court data collection. And that's going to be a big undertaking. That's why it's such a big estimated number. And the reason behind that is we have our probation database, but the Office of Special Projects, where all the clinicians for problem-solving court exist, use a separate database. We need all that information to go to the AOIC. So how to cull or combine and collect is yet to be determined. But ultimately, we're hoping for a solution and the ability to report on this data to the AOIC by the middle of next year. And again, that one will be probation service fee as well, though. So
I can't believe we're the only county that has to come up with a solution for integration of that data.
We could spend the rest of today talking about it. The AOIC has had, they use Tyler Systems to do their integration. That's who's, Kathy alluded to Socrata, and she has to report on this data as well. Socrata is Tyler Technologies database. They have an integration pathway, and every circuit or every probation department had to prove that they could integrate to it. Our vendor was able to do that, and that was the lowest cost of the whole thing. It was about $22,000, which was reimbursed by the state, the only part reimbursed by the state. The rest of it, though, the modifications to system that you need to meet their same data criteria are on the individual departments. I will say that some places, there's about 49 counties in the state that are served by one vendor. We looked at that vendor, and it's real close to a DOS-based system. I mean, it is antiquated like you wouldn't believe. So they have a low cost for their data collection and integration, but you are literally working command prompts to get to different screens. And that wasn't a good solution for us. So, yeah, it's a real challenge. I've been trying to push back on it as hard as I can, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of appetite for minimal data reporting.
So a couple other things for court admin. We do have in our budget request a reclassification of 2 of our interpreter from a 4N to a 5N. Jury commission, we just mentioned DOS prompts. We have a system, I think that part of it was written originally in COBOL. Can you remember COBOL?
You're equal to the state.
Yeah. So that needs to be upgraded. It's, we need to get on a .NET framework so that we can do different things and communicate better with our jurors, whether it's through text or automated dialings, those kinds of things. We just can't do that. Law library, we're asking for $20,000 in upgrades. That's for security cameras and furniture. The fund balance for the library will cover those costs, not the general fund. The law library is completely funded by the law library and the self-help center are completely funded by law library fees.
Questions?
Can I offer, I had a note for Kelly Wagner. You asked about fees. Can we just impose more state fees? 72 hours ago, I received, and I get, part of my job, Eric, I get complaints. And Dawn Mitchell, my assistant, says, Judge, we have a complaint. And I'll tell you what the complaint was. And it always has to be in writing, and I'll address it. We had a judge who dealt with a traffic ticket, and the fine was $50. Court costs, state allowed or otherwise mandated court costs, sometimes allowed as approved by the, anyway, $226. The costs were 4.5 times the fine. So when this defendant left the courtroom and she goes to Kathy Keefe's window, the total, whatever that is, was $276 for, I don't know, traveling too close or failing to yield, something like that. It happens. So anyway, yeah, there is some of that, but just so you know, that's a real life, this week experience.
And that's actually low. I've had people who have had fines and then paid $400 above and beyond what the actual fine was. So, yeah,
Not
it's an
speed
issue.
in construction zone.
How do you know?
No, because it's that expensive.
No,
It is, yeah,
And
I mean,
it's not, again, non-discretionary. This is what the law is.
any other questions?
I just do have one question
Sure.
for Seth.
Of
So
course.
you gave us a presentation earlier in the year that you guys are gonna start doing your own drug testing.
We are using a vendor to do our drug testing.
Oh, you're using a vendor.
Yeah,
So
we
was
had
that?
historically always done our
Oh,
own.
that's right.
That was the other way around, yeah.
It was a part of that discussion.
Okay, so that, and that
Program,
is,
as part of the program evaluation, Seth kind of set the table for evaluating outsourcing.
that's right. Is that incorporated in this budget at all, or is that?
Yes, and that is actually, I didn't go into detail with it, but in moving the detention and placement to the court, a lot of that is general fund dollars, but not all of it. Some of it is probation service fee, but I can't give him probation service fees to pay for those things. So we had to look at offsetting some of our other expenses, and one of the big ones is drug testing. So I think in this year's budget, we had how much at general fund at drug testing? Susan? 55,000 was general fund? Was that this year?
This
or-
year, I'm sorry, this year we had 140,000, 170,000.
Of general fund dollars, and then the difference up to 220,000 roughly was probation service fee. 2024 is 189,000 of probation service fee that we're putting at it, and just that little bit difference, 30,000 of general fund. So it's still covered. We're still going to continue to use that vendor. It's been a lot of good things have come out of it, but we're going to pay for it out of probation service fees instead, mostly. Thank you.
Mr. Kunkel?
This is not just a question, but just kind of a statement of me catching things that were thrown out of items like the rent and things that right now we don't know are coming. We're looking at $390,000, I just calculated in quick numbers as we ran through this, that are open right now.
I think it's all.
We are paying rent now, it's the.
Right, but we have no mechanism right now to pay that any other way, which general funds was not paying that, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's his point.
My point is that would become incumbent upon us now, somewhere in that number again.
Which in defending my comments all the time, now you understand why I look at all of you with my eyes crossed and say minimally, you have to take new growth, minimally. Any other questions? My last to all three of you.
Yes.
Outside of the financial hardship that obviously the what is it?
Pretrial fairness
Pretrial
is
and the Safety Act. What are the other big challenge? What's the one biggest challenge you see outside of paying for it?
He told me I shouldn't say it.
No. You're prepared. You knew. I want us to know. What's your one big concern that?
Well, you know, I'll blame it on Mike Caldwell. He said years ago we should have a new courthouse. Well, maybe we should have a new facility. You know, we're moving people around to, this is not my personal issue, but it's a practical issue. We have 70-some people coming for training so we can tell the attorneys what to do. And we're going to shoehorn them into the sheriff's training facility. But my bigger issue, Pam, you know, I don't know, this sounds trite, it's technology. And I'll tell you what it is. Somehow I chair the Court Technology Committee, maybe I mentioned this before, of the Conference of Chief Judges. And you bring up this thing called AI, and people look at you, what are you talking about, right? And then talking about it right now, we're already behind the 8 ball. So Dan and I, and that was part of the technology conference, I can't go to it, I think Judge Gervais is going and the team. You know, we're learning, and we're going to be meeting with LexisNexis, right, to see what they can offer us. Mary Jane Tice, you know, when I brought I have a proposal pending for the judges throughout the state, and I was kind of pushed to the side by other chief judges, say, yeah, you know, what's that? If we're not dealing with AI today, you know, what happens tomorrow, next week? And when I go and talk to our jurors on Mondays, and I mention that, it kind of scares people. I said, well, wait, we're not replacing us. But I'll give Chief Justice Tice this credit. She says, hey, how can, and this is my thought too, how can we leverage that? So I don't know what that means. We're gonna talk to some vendors and see, can we utilize technology in a better way? Because to be candid, you know, that's our marketplace, right? If I could go in the middle of the night to talk to American Express about a dispute on a bill, why do I have to wait, what is it, 6 months to get in the small claims court in front of Judge Johnson and go tell her what my issue is? So, you know, to me, that's one of our challenges, to be candid. Personnel, always. We have one research attorney for 19 judges, and we're not asking for that, so what are we doing? Judge Gervais, Judge Hanson, Judge Zalid, we're working with externs, students who might, you know, there's a cost. So we're, you know, those are a couple of the areas that I don't want to mention it because we're going to try to live within our means. I mean, it's, you know, the unfunded nature of what it is, I don't know. And, but those are my thoughts. Do you guys have anything to add or subtract?
For court services, I would say the biggest challenge of the PFA is staff.
Okay, that's.
Longer weekends and holidays, which is an imposition. We're not asking for more in overtime. We kept that where it is so that knowing that it was coming. So there's that piece, but I would say, you know, it was all a go for January 1 and then it wasn't. And our staff were ready to make those adjustments and then we had to wait. And then there was, you know, then it came out 2 months ago, or a month ago now, I suppose, or 6 weeks ago. And there has been debate about what's the right way and do we need to do Saturdays and Sundays. And the staff having to kind of wait and see is a little off-putting. After that comes into play on September 18th, there's a lot within the legislation that we didn't cover today about a person on EM for pretrial needs to be allowed 48 hours out of every 7 days to free movement, and we have to make sure that that happens for them. You know, there's a whole bunch of other little small caveats within the act that will be incumbent upon our officers.
And again, not to interrupt, but I think that we've talked about keeping this committee as well as the full board apprised of all of the challenges that you bump into as you go forward. I just wanted a 30,000-foot kind of overview and preparation of some of those things that will come forward, because they will.
So piggybacking on what Seth said, you know, the timelines that we're given as far as things that have to be done, you know, if somebody comes in on a Saturday and they've been arrested for domestic violence or violation of order of protection.
Don't jinx it. Don't jinx it.
You know, if the state files a petition to detain, that hearing has to occur immediately, or if there's a continuance requested within 24 hours. So that impacts.
That's how we might get to Sunday. Well, I say God forbid we'll do what we have to.
Right.
So, and then, you know, the electronic monitoring piece is just, you know, because you've got, somebody has to be in violation for 48 hours before you can even get a warrant.
And I think it's incredibly important, and I say this all the time, that this committee and the board members are always aware of the impact to our staff, to our leadership, so that we have the opportunity to explain that to our constituents, so that they understand what we're grappling with and why, if we have a conversation about taking, you know, a part of the levy, we have to understand all of that to be able to explain the decisions we're making. So it's incredibly important for all of you to share and keep us apprised of how that state legislation impacts all of us every day.
I'll close with this. Come on over. I extend an invitation. Anytime, come over. We're happy to have anybody from the board come over, see what we're doing, ask questions. How are we doing it? Why are we doing it? We will absolutely share. Come on.
And we might follow up on that as a full committee thing. So, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Do we have consensus to move the budget forward as presented? No consensus was given. Thank you, Bri. And real quickly, just to get this done, and I was hoping to be done by about 11. There really is no old business. Look at Peter.
No, we
there's
just need to consensus on merit.
Merit. Oh, I apologize. Merit Commission, we've got that too. I apologize.
Consensus.
Okay.
It's pretty straightforward.
So Merit Commission
They have to do
is,
it.
there's been less applicants So they have to do more sessions. That's why you see like a slight increase. Everything else is the same.
All of them is that little bit, you really have.
Do I have consensus to move American?
Absolutely.
Thank you, consensus is given, thank you very much. And real quickly before we adjourn, I just want to give you all an update, because I really believe it's important for me to keep you apprised of the things that go on associated or affiliated with this committee. We have had a few issues with regards to liquor license, and it runs the gamut. In conjunction with the county administrator, our liquor commissioner, which is Chairman Bueller, and myself, we have had individuals come in and we've had, discussions, and I can't tell you all the details because privacy and confidentiality. If you want to know specifics, call me. We are continuing to work on these issues. Kyle Brewitt is in the audience, and after today's committee meeting, we're going to be looking at some of our existing ordinances with special event licenses and any associated details with those, as well as then some of our antiquated liquor license requirements and how that process works, because it works with a little bit of different departments. So just want to keep you apprised. It's in response to some of the issues we've been having. We take it obviously very seriously, and all of this will be shared with you prior to any additional license approvals that we do on our annual basis. You'll have full disclosure of everything that's going on. But if you hear anything, please feel free to reach out. It's been a work in progress, and I think the coordination has been really, really good. Anything else for the good of the order? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting. My Vice Chair, Mr. Short, and Brian seconds that motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.